I know this is your last time doing one of these, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, maybe bittersweet, so you don't have to deal with us every end of the year.
I'll miss you all.
Aw. Well, 2014, the year began with it was a lot more hectic than it is now. You know, the Ford fiasco kind of reaching a peak at that point as well. But it's ending off with someone else in the mayor's office right now, and it's a little bit more calm. Is that a relief almost heading into the last few months?
So I'm the police chief. Calm is good.
Absolutely, okay. And what was the most difficult issue, looking back 10 years now, that you've had to deal with? One that you can say maybe kept you up at night, something that was difficult to handle?
Well, I'm not quite prepared to reflect on the full 10 years of my tenure because I'm still here for another 4 months. But the things that I think every police chief is always concerned with is the safety of their citizens, which is our first priority. Their safety is why we do this job. And also the safety of the men and women that work for me, that every day go out there and put themselves at risk to keep the community safe.
And right now, I know that you're known, we're going to reflect a little bit just on you being chief for the last 10 years, but you were known as a chief that brought in community policing as well as diversity. Tell me what you want your legacy, what else you want your legacy to be? Well,
legacies are, I think I'll leave it to others to describe legacies, but I think we've built a foundation, and a foundation for the future, a very strong foundation. One of the things that I recognize, and I've been a cop in this town for 38 years, is that we have to have a police service that speaks the languages of the people of the city, that is culturally competent, knows these communities, can be known and trusted in those communities. And so we've worked very hard over the past decade to create a diverse workforce, and to create not just a workforce that looks like the diversity of this city, but has their life experience, has that diversity of perspective that is the city of Toronto. And it's really important that we do that. And the reason it's important is because we have to have positive relationships with every community, with all the people in this city. We have to be able to work with the people of this city to keep it safe. And that's really what community policing is all about. It's going out and earning and being worthy of the trust of the people, and then working in partnership with kids in a community, with their families, with teachers, with social service providers, with youth workers, with the business community, with virtually everyone, who all have an interest in making Toronto a safe and livable city. And we work in partnership, and we do it through community outreach and community engagement. I hope that we've built a very strong foundation, and people generally recognize around the world that we have been leaders in the city of Toronto in reaching out to one of the most diverse cities in the world. And we've made it together one of the safest, most livable places anywhere. And I think it proves the value of that diversity and those relationships.
Okay, we're going to turn it internally now within the police force. When it comes to mental health among officers, what has been done, what changes have been made ever since the review was released recently over the last few months regarding the mental health of officers within?
Well, first of all, let me just sort of move back a few years. We recognize that the well-being of all of our members is very important. They do a very difficult job, and there are certain stresses and burdens that come with this work that can really affect them. And also, we recruit from the human race, and we know that mental health affects 1 person in 5 in this country. And so it is going to affect my people, and it's going to affect their families. And so we are concerned about their physical health, but also their psychological health. And so a number of years ago, we went out and hired two full-time psychologists. We developed a number of well-being programs within the service. We have a family assistance program, psychological health services, our medical advisory bureau. So a great deal of work has been done over the past decade. But when we looked at the very difficult cases that we have to deal with responding to people in crisis, and I asked Justice Frank Iacobucci, a retired Supreme Court of Canada judge, to come in and look at all aspects of our response to dealing with people in crisis. I also asked him to look at the mental well-being of our people, and he made 13 recommendations. Those recommendations were well on the way in implementation too. We know that, notwithstanding we've done some good things in the past, we can do more, and we need to do more to reach out to our people and to make sure that they know the services that are available to them, and that we respond to the needs that they may have. Making sure that our people are healthy and fit to serve the people of Toronto is one of our responsibilities.
Have any of those recommendations that were well underway previous to that report, have any of them been implemented yet?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we have an implementation steering committee. We've gone to the Canadian Mental Health Association, our partners at CAMH, psych survivors and members of our own service. We've been working in partnership in the implementation of those recommendations. Some of them do require investments, but we are providing more services and more information to our members to make sure that they know the services that are available to them.
But can you be more specific? What actually has changed?
And no, I'm not going to be specific, but I can tell you, if you go back to the Akabuchi recommendations, there are 13 recommendations, and we're well on the way of implementing all of the recommendations concerning the psychological well-being of our members.
Okay. Can I ask, why did it take this long to start implementing not just those recommendations, but start making those changes?
And again, I think that's not a correct characterization. We have been working tirelessly on this. And I'll give you an example. A number of years ago, we entered into a program where our people were going to serve overseas in theaters of combat, but to do peacekeeping police missions. And before we sent them, we developed a psychological health program so that our people were all subject to psychological testing before they went to make sure that they were fit for the job that they were about to take on. We provided ongoing support for both the officers and their families while they were serving overseas, and we have psychological testing and support services that we put in place. We went to the military and we learned what they do for their members, and we implemented that program well in advance of ever sending anyone overseas. And that program, I think, is state-of-the-art on how we can support our people and how we have to support our people. And we've expanded upon what we've learned from that to providing services for all of our members, because even if you're not doing your job in a theater of war, but doing it on the streets of Toronto, you're going to experience trauma and tragedy. And so we want to make sure that we provide the support for all of our members. And so this has been an ongoing effort on our part to continue to evolve in the quality of services that we provide and to make sure that our people receive the support that they need to do a difficult job. We asked Akabuchi to say, is there other things? And to do a search of what others were doing, a sort of worldwide search of best practice. And he came back with some additional recommendations, and we're well in the process of implementing those as well.
Wait, there were suicides that had occurred earlier this year.
In the past 5 years, we've actually lost, I think, 5 members to suicide in this organization. All of them are related to a number of different events. I would not make generalities, as you have, with respect to those services, but services were available to those members. It is unfortunate that when you're dealing with people with personal problems that can result in those things, not every tragedy is preventable. But we have made a very significant effort in this organization to provide the support to our people that they need and they deserve to do a very difficult job.
Would you call it a crisis? And you're saying I'm not characterizing it the way that you would, but would you call that a crisis?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
No, I think a crisis is a situation where you haven't done anything to respond. We've done a great deal, perhaps more than most other organizations, and we continue to learn from the experience of others, and we continue to learn when tragedies do happen. It is unfortunate that in our society we still have people who suffer from psychological problems and mental health issues that can end tragically, and we have an obligation to do everything possible to support those people, and we're doing a great deal, and we're trying to learn if there's even more that we can do. It would be a crisis if we were doing nothing, but we've been doing a great deal and will continue to improve.
Okay. York Police, for example, they have a set group of people who actually go and seek out officers who may have responded to an event that was traumatic, and they want to get to them before it even becomes a problem. Is that a group or something that you would consider here with TPS?
We already have a very significant process of debriefing in any traumatic event. When our people respond to an issue where a child has been killed or badly injured, or where people are exposed to a very traumatic event, and it's the nature of our work. We get these calls every single day, and our people have to go. Or someone has died in a car accident, or someone is the victim of gun violence, or into domestic violence situations. And whenever we identify an event that is what we call a critical incident, where police officers have been exposed to trauma, we immediately provide them with psychological support and debriefing. It happens in every case.
Mm-hmm. But do you have a dedicated group?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Just as York Police does. Just as York Police does, because I know that...
I actually have 2 full-time psychologists that lead this, and we have officers and members that go and respond. In addition to that, there are other supports available which we don't talk about, where if someone is suffering, then we connect them to various health services through our medical advisory services, through our psychological services, and through our family assistance program. All of those things are of a confidential nature. But in every traumatic event that our people are exposed to, we have a process of debriefing where trained professionals respond and provide support and services.
At every time?
Yes.
Every time?
Yes.
Okay. And you won't, though, get into any specifics about some of the new changes and improvements that have been made?
No, I won't. No, I won't.
And I'm going to actually move on to an event that just happened over the weekend, and this is outside of Toronto, of course, but the tragedy of losing two New York City police officers in an ambush. There was also an officer in Florida who was killed. How do those events actually affect the way that you think about the safety of your officers here in Toronto?
There is a certain risk inherent to putting that uniform on and going out and working in our communities. And tragically, a number of police officers lose their life in the performance of their duty in the United States and here in Canada. Earlier this year, we had 3 officers from the RCMP killed in Moncton in tragic circumstances. Again, an individual who went hunting to kill police officers and assassinated 3 of them. It's something that I think every police chief is concerned about. I think every community should be concerned about it. You know, their police officers are public servants. They go out and they work for the community, to serve the community. And I think it's very tragic when they lose their life in the performance of that duty, particularly from such an individual who was just going out to kill them because they're wearing that uniform.
What's morale been like with frontline officers? Again, this is going back to events in the U.S., but what's morale been like ever since the grand jury results from Ferguson and New York have come forward?
The circumstances in the United States with grand juries, with the type of investigations they conduct in the aftermath of these events is very different than the experience here in Canada and in Toronto. And for example, in any event where the police use force or deadly force resulting in injury or death here in Ontario, we have an independent special investigation unit that comes in. The decisions with respect to the laying of charges is done not by a grand jury but a Crown attorney. And we've had lots. Let me finish my answer.
Go ahead, sorry.
And so the circumstances here are very, very different. I think, like all people in our profession, we watch and try to learn from the experience of others, but the relationship between the police and the diverse people in the city of Toronto is different than in some of the circumstances experienced in other jurisdictions in other countries.
Okay, what I meant was, have your officers reported any kind of increased tension just between those communities ever since those results?
We understand in this country, people we've had some small protests here, and people have a right to do that, and we support people's right to go out and express their concerns and their opinions.
I am going to just quickly go back to mental health very quickly, and I just wanted to ask what's being done to try to break down the stigma surrounding mental health among officers within the Toronto Police Service.
We've had a number of internal initiatives with respect to the reporting of mental health problems to attempt to remove the stigma. One of Frank Iacobucci's recommendations was about stigma. And so we've had a number of communication initiatives internally to our members about the importance of recognizing when someone is in difficulty and making sure that we respond in an appropriate way.
Okay. Have you received any feedback from officers about those communications that have been?
My officers, over 20,000 times a year, deal with people who are in crisis and people who are suffering mental illness. I think cops have a pretty good understanding of how that can affect families and individuals and each other. And I think most police officers understand the difficulties of responding on a daily basis to traumatic events. And they have a responsibility to support each other and to take care of themselves and to make sure that they're in a psychological healthy place to do this job. I want to make sure, and we've been communicating to them, that they know the services and supports that are available to them. I think, unfortunately, the stigma does still exist, and people may be reluctant to come forward, but we do everything we can to continue to encourage them and to make sure that it's available and to make sure that their supervisors and co-workers know about the services that are available so that they can make sure that we support each other.
I'm going to go back a few months now and going back to the video, Rob Ford in State Queen. And when you saw that video, when you first heard about it, I mean, what was it like watching it and hearing what he was saying? Was it hurtful?
I've already commented on that. Frankly, the city has turned the page, and we're going into 2015 with the new administration, and frankly, I'm hoping a very respectful way of doing business.
Okay, are you seeing that already in the short time that has changed?
Well, certainly, Mayor Tory is working very hard with every city department, and we've had a number of meetings with him, and I'm certainly encouraged and optimistic about the future.
Okay. Looking back again over the last 10 years, is there an issue in particular that you wish you could spend more time on and get done and accomplished before you leave?
You know, every time someone in the city suffers from violence or is victimized, I take that very personally. We've set out and worked relentlessly over the past decade to reduce violence, reduce victimization, to make our community safer. Every time a young person is hurt, every time a child is injured or killed, I think that's a great tragedy, and something that I think the entire city needs to continue to relentlessly work on. Like we have that obligation to our kids. I also see the remarkable potential of the young people in the city. If we can provide them with the support that they need and the respect that they need, and to help them realize that potential by giving them opportunities. We've worked hard on that for the past 10 years. I hope we continue to work hard on it in the future.
What do you think the next chief should focus on?
You know, I'm not going to give any unsolicited advice to the next chief. I'm very optimistic. We've built a strong foundation of community partnership in this city, and I know that the next chief will have a remarkable team, because I've been working with a remarkable team here, and so I hope well, as not so much as a police chief, but as a citizen of Toronto, we continue to move forward.
You said that you'd obviously help with the transition process and so on. After that's all done, and after April 25th, what's next for you?
Well, again, I've had a number of different things to consider, but I've spent my life in public service, and I'll just find a different way to serve.
Okay. No idea just yet where you...
I got a few ideas. We'll see where it goes.
All right. Surprise? We'll find out in June where you're going next?
Well, actually, towards the end of April is when my term ends,
Oh,
and I don't intend to take any time off. I'll just find something else to do and get right at it.
Right away?
Of course.
Okay. No breaks?
I haven't taken one in 38 years. I can't imagine taking one now.
You don't feel like having one then?
No, ma'am.
Sleeping in a couple days?
No, ma'am.
Always working?
Well, I like what we do. It's a privilege to do this. You can make a difference. You can make a difference in the quality of people's lives and in their safety, and I just want to continue to serve.
Okay, so not the last of you, we'll see for sure.
We'll see.